All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome. I call the June 14th meeting of the Community Development and Human Services Committee to order. Even got the official gavel and everything. I'm Councilmember Jason Dozier. I'm the chair of the committee, and I am joined by fellow committee members. To my left, I have Councilmember Matt Westmoreland, Councilmember Dustin Hillis, Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari, and to my right, I have Councilmember Jason Winston and Councilmember Byron Amos. The first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. I'll move to adopt, second by Westmoreland. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. Well, one moment. As soon as all the members sign in, we'll open the vote. And now the vote is open. And the vote is closed.
The motion carries 6 yeas, 0 nays. Next item is the approval of minutes. I'll motion to approve minutes, second by Bakhtiari. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
All right, the minutes have been approved, 6 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. Next item on the agenda is public comment. I see we have a huge crowd today. 1 second as it populates on my screen on who we have. All right, so I have 5 people signed up for public comment on my screen, but I think I saw a few people sign up as well that aren't on my screen.
There are a few more, but
stand by.
there are 7 total.
All right. So first up we have Ms. Henry Jordan. Please come to the podium. And just for our public commenters, you'll have 3 minutes, and at the 30-second mark, I will. I don't mean to it's not personal, but I will give you a 30-second warning. But just so you know, your time is close to expiring. So, Ms. Jordan, please share your words.
Here, for to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Romans 8, chapter 6, verse. To trust yourself is to ask for death, but to trust in Jesus is to ask for life. Your flesh actions will lead to death, James Griff. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised. Luke 4, chapter 18, verse. Although Jesus was God during his earthly life and ministry, he still recognized his dependence upon the ministry of the Holy Spirit. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which are reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabbath. James 5th chapter 4th verse. The Lord Sabbath, meaning the Lord of hosts, of armies, describes the omnipotent, avenging character of God who sees and hears the injustice. But Peter said, Ananias, why hast thou filled thine heart to lie to the Holy Ghost and to keep back part of the price of the land? Acts 5th chapter 3rd verse. The verse 3, Peter states that Ananias lied to the Holy Spirit, so he dropped dead. The money, I believe, was to help the poor. The money Jesus created through me is to help the poor. For God commanded, saying, honor thy father and mother. He that curseth father or mother, let him die the death. Matthew 15, chapter 4th verse. An injunction is given to respect mother and father, who are God's representatives. Jesus warned children not to inflict harm to their parents to avoid destruction. God also warned me not to walk in pride like other men, because pride leads to death. You might have power in the world, but we won't have power to obey Christ. That's the real power that we need, that I need. And that's what I try to stand it, because I seek to have his power in my life. I need it in my life. But you also do, too, because God said it, not because I said it, because the word of God said it.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Our next speaker, Ms. Emma White.
Hello, everyone. I'm with Housing Justice League today. I just wanted to, urge the council to move forward on the Tenants' Bill of Rights, specifically establishing an office of the tenants' advocates. 2 years ago, I moved into an apartment, and the first night that I lived there, it flooded completely. And I called maintenance over and over again, didn't have anyone. Well, the first people to show up was code enforcement about 3 weeks later. So I was living with soggy carpets for about 3 weeks. When I called code enforcement, they basically told me all that they could do was just slap a fine on this apartment complex. They couldn't do anything to force the apartment complex to actually take action on fixing my flooded apartment. And this specific apartment complex said the code enforcement officer basically told me had hundreds of code complaints had been filed against them just over the course of the year. So myself and my neighbors at the time, many of my neighbors were living off vouchers. We were all pretty much living check to check and couldn't even think about hiring a lawyer to fight back. But as it stands, there's really no other way to fight back against these, these corporate landlords or just, landlords who are treating their tenants badly, despite us paying rent every month. I'm fortunate enough to have been born into a family with generational wealth, which is, not the same for a lot of the people living in the apartment complex. So I was able to move, asking my parents to borrow some money so I could leave that detrimental situation, because I was living with mold and it was making me sick and my dog sick. But my next move, I moved into a place that was infested with rats. The property had been abandoned for a few years prior, so the landlord knew that the property was infested with rats. So he put in the fine print of the lease that basically the tenants were responsible for pest control, despite him knowing that we were moving into a rat-infested house. And it took about 6+ months for us to get rid of the problem. But basically, I was living in hazardous conditions, multiple places where I moved around the city, and there was really no way for me to fight back. So that's how I found Housing Justice League. And I think it's really important that we establish this tenants office to advocate for tenants. So basically, you can have people to actually enforce these complaints that are coming in, because it's literally a public health issue. It's affecting people with families disproportionately. It's affecting black renters proportionately, because a lot of these, the neighborhoods that I was living in were predominantly black neighborhoods that these landlords are coming in and basically being predatory by, having these neglectful conditions for their renters. So it would be really, really helpful for everyone in the city. We have more than 60% of the city of Atlanta are renters, so to have this office would be just make a huge impact, and it'd be really awesome if the council could push for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. White. Up next, Ms. Teresa Dunn.
Hi, my name is Teresa Dunn, and I'm a senior living in a senior building, Columbia Mechanicsville Senior to be exact. We have a lot of problems in this building. We have 2 elevators. One has been out for over 4 months, and the one that is working go out every week. Every week. That's my boyfriend over there in the wheelchair. He was on the elevator yesterday. It dropped all the way from the 4th floor to the 1st floor. I called the fire department, and they got him back up to the 1st floor. We have a problem with our trash chutes. We have a trash chute on every floor, the trash is backed up. There are a lot of residents. You have to be at least 62 years old to live in the building that I live in. And a lot of people are in wheelchairs and on walkers. They're not able to take their trash outside to a roll-off. But now that's what they're telling us. We need to take our trash outside to a roll-off. It's just, I have pictures of roll-offs on our property right next to a playground that we have, where the top of the roll-off is up. A child could easily climb over in there and be trapped, and it's no way in the world that they could push it up off of them. It's just so many problems. We have, these are some of the hottest days right now, and he has been without air for over 2 months. He has no air conditioning in his apartment. It's just, it's one thing after another. There are no workers, nobody. If we ask about the air, it's the maintenance guys on another property. Or we don't, nobody's here to do it. We're waiting on parts. We're waiting on parts for the elevator. We've submitted a list of concern to management. We requested a meeting with our corporate office. They told us to get them to the middle of June. It's the middle of June. We've already said July the 11th, we're marching to corporate. We're going to corporate ourselves. But it's just bad the way we as seniors are being treated in this building. Even though he hasn't had air for over 2 months.
30 seconds.
The rent is still being paid every month. So, I mean, we need help. We need help at Mechanicsville Senior. I thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Dunn. And just to follow up to our conversation on the other day, please send me those photos. And I know we have some folks with Atlanta Housing in the room as well. I'll follow up with you as well. It's just because we want to make sure we get what's clearly a safety issue addressed as quickly as possible. Thank you. All right, next speaker is Anton Tran. Mr. Tran, my apologies if I mispronounce your name.
No worries. My name is Anton Tran, and I'm a member of Housing Justice League and a PhD student at Georgia Tech. And I just want to underline what all of these stories reflect from a data perspective and a research perspective. A study by the Washington Post showed that 25% of all homes purchased in Atlanta were by corporations and investors. This is the highest rate than any other U.S. city last year. These investors typically buy in black neighborhoods. In Peoplestown, Thomasville, that was 42% of all property purchases. In 2021, in East Point, that's 43%, and in English Avenue and Vine City, that's 53%. What happens when private equity and corporations buy these homes? We know from a 2016 study in Atlanta that they evict at a higher rate, about 8%, and a 2020 follow-up study found similar results and also noted that they are more likely to use the threat of eviction. These corporations hold property shell companies in the form of an LLC. This impinges landlord accountability and allows them to severely neglect these properties, which is what we see today and is what we see in all of these stories that have been shared. 3 studies in 2019, 2020, and 2021 found these types of patterns from landlords. And in communities where we are organizing right now, for instance at Royal Oaks in Greenbrier Mills, there are over 185 code violations, yet nothing has been done about these severe habitability issues. These landlords are not landlords. They are investors who only see the collateral value in the properties, meaning they purchase hundreds or thousands of properties, bundle them into financial assets, and then offer it up as collateral to be able to access more financial capital and make continued investments. So they don't understand anything about property management. They don't understand what it means to be a landlord. And we've seen them shift and cycle through multiple property management firms within a 6-month period. This is exactly what we saw at Royal Oaks in Greenbrier Mills. There's been 3 different management teams under 3 different companies, and no one knows who the actual landlord is until someone can come in and actually dig through all of these LLCs. What this means is that we need an Office of Tenant Advocacy that can hold these landlords accountable, and we need to divest from this type of landlord and implement affordability measures towards CDCs increase the Beltline affordability tax breaks, and make sure that we are not
30 seconds.
providing more funds and inviting more developers and real estate investors who aren't even interested in actually providing homes, but just gaining more capital. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tran. All right, up next we have Miracle Fletcher.
Hi, my name is Miracle Fletcher. I'm a member of Housing Justice League as well. I'm speaking today to also urge the council to please consider the Tenant Bill of Rights, because right now we know that we're in a housing crisis. I'm a person that is a low-income mom. I'm a cancer survivor, and I was living in subsidized housing. My programs ran under HUD, but like Emma said and some more people said, I was actually left to live in deplorable conditions for repeated months. So even without having access to resources, a lot of tenants and family members, whether it's whether they're a demographic of African American or any person of color, have less access to resources. So even though we have the programs like Housing Justice League and AVLF, there's not one central location where people can come in that need help with simple things, from filling out the eviction warrant process, from actually having rights to access to counsel. All of those things are important. So you have little people like me that come into a courtroom that have no idea actually what's going on. You don't understand even the terminology that the attorneys are using with the corporate land developers, and you're kind of sitting there and you're lost. So we need to have that advocacy office put in place because we have this funding, but how can we create an environment where we're not continuing to have that same cycle? So we have to look at the wholeness of a family. You can't just say, well, we're going to give them funding to pay for first month rent and deposit to move in, but we don't have any kind of means to offer them resources for financial literacy, for if they have issues like with their background issues or credit issues or just any type of resources. So if you're a single mom and you're out here worrying about, I'm about to lose my place, yet and still like I don't have anywhere to call. Like the Housing Justice League have the hotline for people to call in, but a lot of times the tenants that are on the other end of that phone call are clueless, have no recourse like for help or just need the resources that they need. And yeah, we have all of this funding. All of this money is flowing through the city. But as you know, we've seen the money hasn't been accessible. We've had landlords be able to deny people when they even did the process for the funding. So yes, I'm on the end as a tenant. I'm doing the process. I'm submitting the paperwork. But if this leasing management team is refusing to even accept the money that the government is issuing, what are tenants able to do? So I just urge you guys to please consider, investing in that because it'll help the city as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fletcher. Up next, Allison Johnson.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to read off a few stats to follow up what Anton was saying. In terms of the Tenants' Bill of Rights, the thing that we are really mostly wanting a lot support around is the advocacy office, but also the access to counsel. So I'm going to just read off some numbers because normally I would just talk to y'all, but I didn't do all of my due diligence, so I need to read this to you all. So since 2020, 225,000 evictions have been filed in the 5 county regions of Fulton, DeKalb, Gwinnett, Clayton, Cobb since the pandemic, despite the moratorium. Evictions increase the likelihood of mental health crisis, depression, lower birth rates, and poverty. Evictions also increase the likelihood of mental health crisis, depressions. Evictions disproportionately affect Black neighborhoods and communities of color. During the moratorium, 483,000 evictions were done a week. Post-moratorium, 815,000 done in that year. So these have doubled. In 2020, 423,000 total folks answered the eviction. So that was about 36.53%. And to this day, it has increased from 432,000 to 611,000 evictions a year. So that's an increase of 41% a year. Most of these folks don't go down and enter an eviction, mainly because the process is very intimidating. People don't understand it. They don't have access to any other legal resources, and that's just not been the way that we've done evictions in the city of Atlanta. So we are asking you all for support. We can only do so much. It's Housing Justice League. We're on the ground. We need resources to support our work on the ground. We are door knocking. We're trying to get folks to come down here and tell you about what's happening in their communities and where it's happening. Of course, we know it's happening in communities where people who are earning lower incomes, but it's happening all over the city of Atlanta. If you are not upper middle class, you are struggling. And you have an opportunity to also have an eviction filed against you. So it's imperative that we do everything we can to put people and keep people in safe places, not just places, but they have to be safe places of dignity. So we're asking you to support a tenant advocacy office and also access to counsel. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Our next speaker is Mr. Zach Murray.
Good afternoon, members of the council. I wanted to just start by saying, in affordable housing policy, there's this concept of naturally occurring affordable housing, NOAA, but there's nothing natural about redlining or ghettoization. What we have instead is housing that's affordable until the market speculation starts, or a hot mess. And it's time that you all take action to address this hot mess that's happening to tenants all across the city. We need the Tenant Bill of Rights that the Housing Justice League is promoting. The right to counsel is critical so that people have recourse to deal with these terrible evictions and the terrible conditions that folks are forced to live under. We need you all to establish an office of the tenant advocate to inform tenants of their rights, to work towards banning the box and rent stabilization, a right to cure, and also tenant opportunities to purchase. These are all really important priorities that can help us to meet the 3 Ps of affordable housing, which are protections, preservation, and production. Right now, all we do is production. And as you are moving forward on this housing trust fund, there has to be comprehensive strategic thought about how we do the other ends of this, which are protections and preservation. We haven't done those things in the city of Atlanta, but they have to happen in order for us to have an ecosystem that works well for all the people. I want to touch on the Atlanta Housing Authority. They were at the working group. Unfortunately, they chose to present only on the housing choice vouchers and home flex, but we need them to be accountable for the development of their properties. They tried to shove down the Bowen Homes community throat a 2-week process to get a choice neighborhoods grant in. We learned just this past week or 2 weeks ago about the Atlanta Civic Center, in which they're pushing 100% AMI as affordable housing. You all spent $30 million of public money buying that property. We want to see a sufficient amount of affordable housing on that property. I'm glad the joint partnership was canceled, because that was an ineffective offer to the public in terms of the money that we put up. Where do we get our return on investment from Atlanta Housing? We need them to move forward transparently on developing those properties and ensuring that there are targets being met for those properties to go to folks at 30% AMI and below. And on to the Housing Trust Fund. Again, we need transparency on this. The city is moving forward with a strike force that does not include public representation to decide about how our public land is going to be delegated out, leased out, or sold out to their friends. We don't want this to continue to happen as we had happen with Integral and the Atlanta Housing Authority over in my neighborhood at Carver. We need the land to remain public. We need to be prioritized for affordable housing for folks at and below 30% AMI, because that's where the greatest need is. We have a homelessness crisis of our elders who are out on the streets begging for money, begging for something because they're being kicked out. We have a housing crisis of elders and all types of people being forced to live in terrible housing conditions. In conclusion, now that the Atlanta Beltline has finally funded their path and their walkway, we need them to turn their attention, at least 90%, to what they promised us in advance, which was the affordable housing, because they're decimated the South Side with gentrification. We have a total, as we've mentioned, investors taking over our market, taking over our communities, kicking out our tenants, kicking out our neighbors, and this has to stop. We need all of the philanthropic attention to go not just towards loans, but grants for affordable housing for those people who need it the most, and these are things that you as a council can do right now. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Before we finalize, that was our last public comment, but I just want to editorialize just a little bit. The things that were said today, I will say, I'll speak for my colleagues that y'all have been heard. This is why we did a work session just a few weeks ago about this particular issue. And so we're actively working on ways to move our city forward on this very issue. So I just want to let y'all know that y'all have been heard today and in days and months prior. So we'll continue to work together to move our city in a way to protect everyone who has made Atlanta what it is. So just thank y'all, everyone who has come today to speak at public comment. Before we move into presentations, we do have a couple of communications items. If my colleagues will indulge me, I'd like to just make a quick modification to the agenda to allow for those individuals who are going to be nominated for various committees to have an opportunity to speak. Any objection to that modification? Seeing none, Gary, go ahead and move forward with that portion.
Item number 1 is 22C5090, a communication from Mayor Andre Dickens appointing Ms. Sumaya Ali to serve as a member of the Atlanta Urban Design Commission in the artist category. This appointment is for a term of 3 years.
All right, Ms. Ali, if you could come to the podium, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in this appointment.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you all for having me here today. I would like to thank Mayor Dickens, his team, and the Atlanta City Council for your consideration of this nomination. My name is Sumaya Ali. Some of you may know me formerly as Ash Nash. I'm the founder of Powerhouse Creative. I'm a Black arts and community organizer and human rights activist. In regards to the legacy of my work, there's a few things I would like for you to take away today. I'm an active fighter for leveraging the playing field of quality of life for underserved and unheard. I'm a firm believer that life is art, and art isn't just abstract in theory, but from communities to healthcare to re-entering inmates coming back into society, art is a means of communication, both physiologically and psychologically. Just as the choices and decisions we make as civilians and implement as community leaders, you can't design one aspect without the other. Everything is interconnected. Since its inception in the early 1800s, Atlanta has become the busiest city in the South, thriving amongst a vibrant tree canopy, born as a town solely due to the design of Railroad Junction, and home not to just the busiest airport in the world, but also the civil rights movement. So in the spirit of Maynard Jackson and the design of the MPU system, giving a platform and a space to our community members, Eva Davis of East Lake Meadows, I also err on the side of the preservation of history and culture. I support improvements, but not at the expense of the displacement, exclusion, or disproportionate impact of the community members who are subjected to our approvals. In my time, I have experienced being one of society's most vulnerable to one of society's most successful, which makes me well qualified for this role, but certainly not above being a community servant. I welcome the hard cultural and economic conversations, adversities that come with it, as well as where I believe that to be the sweet spot where change and momentum happen. So again, thank you for your time and your consideration, and to you I say assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you.
Thank you so much. Any comments or questions from my colleagues? We have a motion to approve by Westmoreland, a second by Winston. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
The motion is approved, 5 yeas, 0 nays. Thank you so much, Ms. Ali, and thank you for your service to the City of Atlanta. All right, next item.
Item number 2, 22C5091, a communication from Council President Doug Shipman appointing Mr. Jeffrey Martin to serve on the Atlanta Beltline Tax Allocation District Advisory Committee. This appointment is for a term of 2 years.
All right, Mr. Martin, if you could please come to the podium. All right, well, I guess we'll just hold this one. I have a motion to hold by Westmoreland, a second from Bakhtiari. please open the vote.
Vote is open. And the vote is closed.
All right, the motion to hold is accepted, 5 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. All right, that's it for communications. We'll go into presentations. Our first presentation, Mr. Carrie Stewart, with the Atlanta Fulton County Recreation Authority. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Do I use this, or you all handle it? Okay. Okay, I would like to, unless you all object, I'll start with an overview of the authority and a history, and then I get into an update of our major assets, and then I'll get into a little bit of where we invest into the community, and then I'll be open for questions. So the Recreational Authorities is actually the City of Atlanta and Fulton County Recreation Authority, established in 1960 in House Bill H.R. 999. And this was before the Braves, Falcons, Hawks. And City of Atlanta and Fulton County thought it would be best to have a separate entity established to help bring in professional sports and also be a conduit to finance the arenas and facilities that will need to support those sports teams. So 1960 was established. Soon after that, we had Atlanta and Fulton County Stadium, where the Braves were housed, and later the Falcons came, and they both played out of there. So that's the roots of where this office began. Today, we oversee, or I say asset manage, State Farm Arena, Zoo Atlanta, Gateway Parking Deck at Grant Park, John A. White Golf Course, the leftover parking lots after Turner Field, and the Stadium Neighborhood Community Trust Fund. We are governed by 9 members. Their board of directors. Of those 9, 6 are appointed by the City of Atlanta's mayor, the current mayor, and 3 are appointed by Fulton County. There are 3 employees. I'm the executive director. Vita Kerr is executive assistant, and Martel Ellick is our superintendent. An update on our current assets. The State Farm Arena is back to full operations. They took a hit during COVID, which actually caused them to default on their debt service coverage ratio that's outlined in the operating agreement. They met the debt payment. I see concerned faces here. They just didn't meet the covenant. And so that caused them, they had to actually put up a $15 million letter of credit, which they did. And now they have to meet 8 consecutive quarters of successful meeting the 1.5 debt service coverage ratio in order for that $15 million to be released. They didn't make it for 2 consecutive quarters. They did make it as of Q2 2022, and they met it at a 5.7 times debt service coverage ratio. So they're now back on track. As far as bookings for events, they for the next 2 years, they have record bookings. As we know, the Hawks are doing better, so that means we have more sold-out events. So barring another event similar to COVID, I think they're back on the right track, and they should be okay with those 8 consecutive quarters, and they can release we can release the $15 million back to them. They were recognized recently for total resource use and efficiency, as called TRUE certificate, and that basically means that I think they were the first arena in the world to receive this certificate. They were able to recycle 90% of the trash from State Farm Arena during events, and that put them in a category beyond what other arenas and stadiums are doing. So kudos to the Hawks for implementing that. Every year they come to my office for approving their capital improvement requests. So we oversee and make sure they maintain the building, but they have to come to my office and submit a request. We approve those items that we think fit the definition of capital improvements, and so They are now currently working on those. They try to do it during the off season. And so that's an update on State Farm Arena. Zoo Atlanta, again, they were hit by COVID as well. Last year's attendance was 829,000 guests. They are forecasting 925,000 for 2022. It seems like they are tracking that way. They are re-implementing the safari camp. That's a summer camp for students. And that went away during COVID, and now it's back. I've recently approved the Coca-Cola contracts over 12 months and over a certain threshold we have to approve. And the Coca-Cola contract definitely met that category. It's a 4 or 5 year contract, and it was approved as I stated. Also, the Cherokee lot, my board just approved to upgrade the Cherokee lot with EV charging stations. And Georgia Power is actually contributing something to that as well. We will have to wait for the next cycle of funding for their contribution. And so that's in the process. And the third major asset is Johnny White Golf Course. Over $600,000 were approved by my board to do course renovations. If you go out there lately, we went up there this spring, you saw the greens were in bad shape. And you go out there now, they have been, the greens have been removed, and they are replacing new side now, along with new equipment. So we're trying to get Johnny White course back to a respectable course and one of the better courses in the city. So that's an update of my major assets, and now I can go into some of our investments. I put it into 2 categories, direct investment and indirect investment. Direct investment, I have it in parks and recreation. For parks, Johnny White, example of some of our investments are the annually Johnny White Golf Course has been operating at a shortfall. It's operated by First Tee of Metro Atlanta, and that shortfall has been roughly $200,000. We have been meeting that shortfall. And course improvements I mentioned earlier. Welcome All Park came to us and needed a swim meet clock. They had the pool, Olympic size, or a pool the size that they can have events, but they didn't have a clock, so they couldn't have official swim meets. So we made that investment. Adams Park, we invested in training equipment and supplies for the baseball. Grant Park, we have recently organized and solidified the fact that Grant Park Conservancy, which invests a lot in the upkeep of the canopy at Grant Park, they now receive funds from the Cherokee parking lot to help in those efforts. And then on the recreation side, Atlanta Bicycle Coalition received investment from us, Quicksilver Track Club, in training and equipment supplies, mentoring viable prospects. That's a high school baseball tournament, Cascade Youth Organization, HBCU Golf Championship, and Double Play Baseball Program. Just examples of where we've invested into the community. And then indirectly, the Stadium Neighborhood Community Trust Fund was $5 million that was put aside during the State Farm Arena renovation process. And that's for 5 neighborhoods around the old Turner Field. Received $5 million that we oversee. City Council approves where those dollars go. We just oversee and make sure it goes to the right organizations that were approved by City Council. As of 2022, as of April 30th, 2022, $224,000 has been dispersed from that fund, and of the $5 million, roughly $1.8 million remains. So that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Before I turn the floor over to my colleagues, I do want to acknowledge Councilmember Bond has joined us. Colleagues, do you have any questions? I have some, but I want to give you the opportunity to ask questions first. Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation today. I wanted to ask you about the trust fund. I know when the community presented, they said they had no plans to, I guess, try to get the fund re-upped. But I was going to ask you, though, that is a possibility, isn't it? That if we chose to, that we could refund or fund by other means that are generated by the authority for that community or neighborhood fund, like the parking lots, per se.
Yes, there was an opportunity to refund. Now that was a special opportunity. That was a $200 million renovation, and where we were able to carve out 5, we were able to make that happen. So we would just sit down and see what structure would make sense for that to happen.
So that is a possibility. Because I know that they've done some good work over there in the community, but, you know, having the experience, and of course, Councilmember Amos is aware of this, having these community funds is important and essential for aiding the community, you know, going forward. And I know that they had a certain perspective, but if something else could be developed, I think it would benefit obviously would benefit the community to have that there. And so, but I wanted to ask you, what are the future plans for the parking lot areas? I know Georgia State is doing a lot of expansion around that area. What are the future plans for those?
Well, we received a letter from the community that wished for at least Fanplex to be converted into multifamily housing with a community component to it. So we took that into advisement. We met with the mayor's office and laid out the lots that are available. And I'm currently doing a study on those lots to see which lots are suitable for that type of development. And some of them have come in, but all of the reports have not come in yet. But it looks like some of the lots may be available for that and others aren't. So we're in the planning stage to see what's feasible, what are the wishes of the city, which lots can fit that mold.
Okay. Well,
we're thinking about it.
If you keep us apprised of your progress, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you again for your presentation.
Welcome.
I withdraw, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Bond. Councilmember Winston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, Councilmember Bond alluded to my question, but mine specifically was around the Fanplex building. I know it's been longly vacated in the Summerhill community. Is there a timeline on trying to figure out, you know, what next steps are in terms of doing something with that property?
I don't have a timeline. We're too early in that process, but I have done a study. Fanplex was one of the ones that was, the study was completed. So it has a potential of 300 multifamily units, but I have not presented that to the mayor's office. I have not presented that I did present it to my board just last week. So that's how early we are in the process. I had to have a starting point to know exactly what can be done instead of just talk about it in an abstract. Now I know, according to the current zoning, this is what's possible.
Okay, and then are you able to speak to the I guess the management of the Grant Park Gateway? I know there was a relation where Africa was under control over the building that was at that location, and now the city
that document
under the city's purview.
The document was signed, but there have been some modifications to it that doesn't materially affect the whole document. But yes, the city is taking back control of the green space and the restaurant. How it's written today.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from colleagues? Mr. Stewart, I just had a few questions for you. I really appreciated Councilmember Bond's question about the disposition of parking lots, particularly in Mechanicsville, since that's in District 4. So, and I live in Mechanicsville, and so as a community organizer, I've had great interest in seeing what the future of those parcels may look like. I know we did a LCI study when the Turner Field parcels, at least on the Summerhill side, were sold, and that study included the Mechanicsville side. So just want to echo my colleagues in terms of wanting to see those parking lots become more actively used. I know we talk a lot, in other committees and other forums about heat island effects and stormwater runoff and how the parking lots exacerbate some of those issues. So I just want to echo that comment that was made earlier. But I do have a more immediate concern with how those lots are currently being used. And I know we talked briefly a couple months ago when the Atlanta Fair was in town and there was a triple shooting, and my office has been actively working with APD, Department of Transportation, and others to try to figure out how we can have a more holistic solution to not only with the parcels that are owned by Atlanta Fulton County Recreational Authority that are being leased to the fair and leased to the circus, but also some sister businesses across the street. I see we have folks here from Tom, Dick, and Hank. We have folks who our neighbors tend to have a lot of events, 656 and Believe Music Hall particularly. So when you have the circus, you have a big old party, it creates a lot of chaos, for lack of a better term. And so as we try to figure out how to better manage that, one of the things we've been exploring is how can we get the property owners themselves to do more to address that chaos. With Atlanta Fulton County Recreation Authority, I'm personally curious if y'all, I know there's, the fair and the circus have requirements in terms of neighborhood notification, and they're achieving that by the letter of the law. But I wonder if we could get some potentially additional support in making sure that they have a transportation plan, a public safety plan, and those sorts of things are being presented to the community as well. Because the community is getting notification, but they're not necessarily getting that second door order support that could help us better navigate the transportation challenges that we're seeing. I mean, one of the things that we've been dealing with over in front of Tom, Dick, and Hank in particular is cars parked in the bicycle lane or parked in the reverse flow on Central and Pryor Street. It's not the specific events that are causing that, but the confluence of that with what's happening at Believe Music Hall and things like that. So we're just trying to figure out a comprehensive solution, and we'd love to have Atlanta Fulton County Recreation Authority support in that vision. But I'm just curious what y'all are requiring of these organizations that come to you to say, hey, we want to do an event in the parking lot. And I'm also curious, too, what that revenue model typically looks like for the authority and what happens to, those how do those funds get reallocated or reinvested back into your programming? So that's a very loaded question. I recognize that. But just thinking through where we've had the most pain points, particularly in Mechanicsville, I know, like I said, our neighbors will love to see a future development on those sites, whether it's Georgia State or others. But for the time being, we know how they're currently used, and we want to try to make sure that we have a solution in place that's going to be a net benefit for the community. So
help me stay on track now, but you had a lot of questions.
Yeah, no worries.
Yes, I work with you in the community on that. As far as do we require a traffic plan? No, that I assume that's caught up in permitting. Now we make sure they're insured. We make sure that that they are permitted. And as far as that is concerned, that's all we as far as we go at this point. I mean, they presented the traffic plan. I'm not qualified to say whether it was a good traffic plan or not. But I do know, like the fair, even in doing that event, if you look at how many officers they had that night, it was probably far exceed what I would have requested or mandated. So it's just a very unfortunate incident. But I think they did the forethought to have more offers than we would require.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say too, just some context to that. What we've gotten so far from a community standpoint is they're abiding by the letter of the law in terms of what they need to do from a community presentation standpoint. Where the community is asking for support is for them to go a step further. As an example, 787 Windsor, which has done a number of music festivals over the last several years, Afro-Punk, Milk and Cookies. I can't think of some of the other names because I think the names get more outlandish as the years go by. But they, even though they're following the letter of the law per what is being asked by the city through permitting, they have done really a remarkable job of doing additional legwork with the community to let them know what they're doing in terms of traffic and public safety and that has helped with community buy-in for when they've done these very disruptive events. And I think just what I've been asked to ask you is, could we get some additional support as y'all are, as a condition for these leases or as a condition for approval to do these events to ensure that there's more robust community engagement and communication with the community leadership as well, so that events that we had in the past it's not incumbent on the fair to have, I get it, the shooting did not happen on the fair's property, but the confluence of all these different things are creating a disruptive environment. We're trying to alleviate that in all the different places that we can.
Now, the fair actually has a lease with us, and it might be a 5-year lease. I think they're on year 2. And when I did reach out to him, he's very accommodating. And who should I call, and who do you want me? And they actually came to the community, sent a representative to the community meeting with a couple of days' notice. So let me know what you need, and I think they won't have any problems. Now, as far as the restaurants over there, we have no control over that. We do provide parking attendants on the weekend to help support that traffic of the club and the 2 restaurants. But they don't, I have no communication with them as far as that's concerned. During the Soul Circus, there were car break-ins, and when I became notified of it, I had 2 police cars and off-duty officers there for the remainder of the events. And after that, they didn't have any more car break-ins. So. And
the circus, is there lease for the next 3 to 5 years as well?
I have to think about the circus. I think the circus is maybe in year 3 right now. So yes.
Okay. And I'm happy to talk more offline about more specific community-related things and what we could do to partner going forward. But I really appreciate when after the shooting happened, how responsive you and the folks operating the fair had been to the community. What the community is trying to do is just get ahead of it, because we hear that we know it's a multi-year lease, but we hear that they're coming back maybe this year, I think.
They're planning to come back this fall.
Okay.
So we can, I think they used to meet with the community before each event, and now somebody brought that to our attention, and we passed that on. So they're open to doing it. I can share the dates with you. That way we'll have a tickler to let us know when they should be meeting.
Perfect. And my last question for you is, I know you're speaking to us as a body of the Atlanta City Council, recognizing that the Atlanta Fulton County Recreation Authority, Fulton County is also a key stakeholder in this. I'm curious if you can share maybe what some of their priorities have been for your authority and things that we should be aware of or should be prepared to react to based on, how they're looking to see your properties get either redeveloped or reactivated. I know the jury duty parking is a big part of how they are using the current spaces that you all own. But I'm just curious, they have a long-term vision for any of the things that...
Yes, when the word got back to Fulton County that I was exploring doing anything in those lots, they became alarmed, called a meeting, and their concern is the jury lots and the juvenile court lots. Make sure that they maintain those parking spaces. So I assured them that it's not our intention to take those parking spaces away, so any development we would consider how to maintain those parking spaces, either there or an adjacent property. And they were okay with that. They just want to be kept in the loop as we move forward. So when we are looking at those lots and developing them, we have to keep that in mind. I think we should do that.
All right. Thank you so much. That was my last question. Any additional questions from my colleagues? All right. Mr. Stewart, thank you so much. And I'll follow up with you, too. I really appreciate you being responsive amidst all this, but I have some more questions.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right. Our next presenter is Atlanta Housing.
Good afternoon, council members.
Good afternoon.
I thank you for allowing us to be here so we can give you an update of what's going on in Atlanta Housing. Got some exciting things we want to update you on and some new things that we want to talk about. I know a lot of things are on individuals' mind in Civic Center, and we'll talk about that briefly when we get to that slide. Let's see here. Choice neighborhood. We've talked about this before in our last quarterly meeting. Scholars Landing, if you look at the slide, we have 479 rentals, 229 rental assisted, and 103 low-income housing tax credit and workforce, 147 market, 40 for sale, 8 affordable, 32 market. And we're going to have 18,000 square feet of community center renovation, and that's really called the Roosevelt Hall. And we'll get to that in a minute. Looking at this one, here's what we've completed so far in Scholars Landing. Oasis, we completed 60 senior independent living rental units. Ashley 1 and A and B, 135 multifamily rentals are completed. Ashley 1C is under construction right now. 72 multifamily rental, completion scheduled for October 22nd. We will have a ribbon cutting ceremony for that. We're very excited on that one. Ashley 1C and Ashley 2, 212 multifamily rental units. It will be starting construction December 2022. We're really excited about that. And then the home ownership portion, 40 for-sale townhomes. We are going to start construction in the fall of 2022. And the totals of 509 total units, 65% are going to be affordable. That's a pretty remarkable percentage of affordable housing. Next, we have Roosevelt Hall. Roosevelt Hall is soon to be completed, hopefully. Should have been done in March, should have been done this month. We think it's going to be done in August. It's going to be a great facility. We're going to have a rooftop on top of Roosevelt Hall. We've maintained the historic value of Roosevelt Hall. One of the unique things that we've thought about, we have 18,000 square feet. It's been completed August 2022. We paid at least $2 million for renovation. And what we're going to have a minority business, a coffee shop. They're about 2,500 square feet that we think is going to bring the community together, a gathering spot, especially not just during the day and the lunch, but we may have something at night just to make sure that we have a landing spot for the residents who live in that community. We're very excited about that. Next one, Inglewood Development Program. We're soon to start some vertical construction, depending on the finances that we are receiving. We've had many community meetings in Inglewood. One of the things that were very, very important to the Inglewood community and to the NPU and various other groups are the trees. It seems like across across the street, Empire had really mutilated all the trees on that development, and so because of that, they have mandated that we maintain most of the trees that we have over there in Inglewood. We have made promises to that. We'll maintain those trees, and also we're going to create a pedestrian bridge to make sure that we connect the community and not disconnect the community. We plan on having 828 rental, 495 rental assisted, 179 low-income housing tax credit, and 154 market units. We're going to have 81 for sale, 16 are going to be affordable, and 65 are going to be market. There's going to be approximately 50,000 square feet retail. We have two developers. We have Benoit, and we also have Michaels that are going to be doing development in Inglewood. The next slide, the Benoit group has been split up in two phases. On Inglewood, the first phase or the first part of that group is the Benoit group. They're going to do 200 multifamily. I don't want to just read it to you, but there's going to be some great things. Affordable housing, getting back to the mayor's mandate that we create 20,000 affordable housing units for the next 8 years. We are not mandated to do 20,000. We're mandated to assist the city to get to the 20,000 units. So if you look on the slide in your presentation, the Benoit Group is going to be phase 1, 200 multifamily rental units, 40 market, 100 rental assistance. Phase 2 is going to be 160 single room rentals, 120 rental assisted, 32 market, 4% tax credit. It's going to be closing next year, March 2023. And then 1C, phase 1C, 81 for sale, 16 affordable. The Michaels organization is going to be doing the other portion of it, 227 multifamily units. Phase 2 is going to be 173 multifamily units, and phase 2C is going to be 68. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see the investment that Atlanta Housing is putting into this deal. After everything, we're going to be putting in about $73 million in this development. The key to this is going to be the infrastructure. If you look over there, the infrastructure is not an insurmountable amount, but it's a lot of money, $31 million. And we're a contractor. We're proposing that we're responsible for X amount of dollars for the infrastructure dollars. The next one is the Civic Center. Since it's made national news, there's not too many more things I can say. It's an active procurement right now. As you know, Tishman pulled out of the deal at the last minute. Well, not at the last minute, after the Housing Board of Commissioners had approved it. We got word the next day that they wanted to pull out. They didn't give us any intimate reason, but they said it was just not on their, wasn't according to their plan for this year, I guess. It's sad that we went through the whole process, and then at the end, after the board approved it, that they withdrew. But be that as it may, we have 2 other finalists. We're going through that process, best and final offer. We hope to bring the Civic Center, whatever we made a decision to, probably in our board meeting in August. Hopefully they'll approve that in August, and then we'll bring that out to the public and give the reasons and talk about what's going to be proposing. We probably are looking at more affordable housing units. I know that the neighborhood would like more affordable housing. We're going to be looking at that based on the next 2 proposals, and we'll make sure that we respond to the community and also to the city of Atlanta. Herndon Development Program. As you know, we finished the senior development portion of that. Now we're going to the phase 2 portion, putting the rental housing together. We're proposing 477 rental, 375 rental assisted, 126 low-income housing, tax credit only, and 102 market units. We're going to have 33 for sale, 7 affordable, 25 market. Approximately 29,000 square feet retail and 10,000 for community space. One of the biggest concerns in the Herndon is they wanted a supermarket. We had promised that we're going to put a supermarket on there. We have moved it. Not from phase 2, but to phase 4, and we think we have a plan on providing a supermarket. It may not be the Publix or the Kroger's, but we are planning on putting some type of community supermarket that makes sense in that community and that they buy into it. So we have many more conversations with the community about the status of that supermarket. As you see down at the bottom, of this slide, Atlanta Housing is putting $53 million in this proposal, and it's going to cost us close to $200 million for vertical construction once this is all said and done. Bowen Development, we have received about $400,000 for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for a planning grant for a choice neighborhood for Bowen. We sat down with the community. We talked about what that would look like. We only did a small portion the first time we did a request for a proposal. We found out there were some issues that we had, and we had to stop that solicitation and re-solicit and complete another RFP. And so we did that, and so we're going to be putting that out on the street. If you look at the slide, we resubmit. RFP for developer was issued in April 2020. It was due June 2020. We're going to select a developer in September 2020. HUD issued a notice back in November 2022 for the planning grant. We are going to look at the infrastructure construction in 2023, and phase 1 for housing will be in 2024. There is a mistake on this slide. If you look at the vertical construction, it says that it's going to cost us $448,000 due to total construction of all these units on Bowen Development, which is wrong. It's going to cost totally, it's going to have to be $500 million. Atlanta Housing is going to be putting in about $118 million of our own money into this development over a few years. And that's impressive, a $500 million program, $500 million program. If you look, it's infrastructure is going to cost us $76 million, which is a insurmountable number, but hopefully we can get to the infrastructure number so we can provide a great development for Bowen, and also win the implementation grant from HUD of close to about $35 to $50 million. This is what the development proposal looks like for Bowen Homes, the Bowen site. is very impressive. And we have a lot of work to do if we're successful with implementation grant from HUD. Even if we don't get the implementation grant from HUD, we still have to propose, we still have to move Bowen homes, we still have to develop it, and we'll figure it out how we do that based on what the community input's going to be and that we move forward. Thomasville Development is another development that we're putting to a quick start, and not just based on Forest Cove, but it's the right thing to do to stabilize that community. Thomasville is right across from where Forest Cove is. The mayor told us to expedite Thomasville. If you look at this site, we're planning on initiating conversation. We have already done that in April 2022. We're going to issue an RFP for the developer June of this month. We're going to have those proposals due by August 22, and we hopefully select a developer October 2022. We're also going to be looking for tax credits from DCA, from the state. The proposal for Atlanta housing participation is going to be about $52 million, and the total cost for this development is going to be close to $200 million. Of course, the infrastructure amount is going to be $37 million, and we hope to finance this deal as we select a developer and get back to the community and find out exactly what we want to put back on this development. I think this is going to be an exciting development also as we go through this process, and the community is important. We have some new Board of Commissioners that we're going to be going through this process. We're all going to be educating ourselves, and so we're going to have some dynamic things that going on. We got some great recommendations for our newest board members and for the existing board members, so we're going to see some innovative things and not just cookie-cutter development. We're going to look at some innovative things and pushing these developments to fruition faster than what we've done before, but it's always based on what we can do for the infrastructure, what we can do for financing, and selecting the right developer to move these developments on. Any questions, commissioners? Councilman. I'm sorry, I apologize.
I know my colleagues have questions, but I do want to open up with just one quick one. I really appreciate that retail and commercial is a core component of the Bowen home development. Is there an exploration of retrofitting existing AH properties to allow for commercial or retail? Because one of the things that comes up with my constituents and folks who I know are in these facilities across the city is that they were built with 100% housing in mind, but oftentimes you have a population that's transit dependent and has to rely on a 2-hour bus ride to get to the grocery store and back, or to take their kids. And so bringing those amenities into these developments would be such a net benefit. And I know that's the way we're looking forward, but it's your opportunity to look rearward so that we can provide these amenities to folks who have been currently occupying these.
Thank you, Councilman. I think one of the issues were that we were doing a lot of things on the west side, and we weren't doing anything on the east side. And so when I was told when I first got here we need to do something east side, we looked at Bowen Homes, and we think that was the most appropriate development that we could win planning grant. And also I'm confident with your support and other supports through the city and our congressional staff that we can get the implementation grant and move this development quicker through fruition. So we're looking forward to that.
And that's, I know that you had mentioned the emphasis on the west side, but for instance, over across from King Memorial, McDaniel Glen and Mechanicsville, are y'all pursuing potential enhancements to get us to where we're going towards the future? Or
yes, we are.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
All right.
We have a lot of things on our plate, and I don't want anyone to say, well, we need to slow down. We cannot slow down right now because the matter of urgency of affordable housing, that's what we need to do. That's our mission, so we're going to move forward.
All right, thank you. So we have a list of speakers today. Councilmember Bond, you go ahead and kick us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I just have a couple of questions. One on the Civic Center project. Could you go into detail about the ins and outs of that project? When the city released the Civic Center, I was one of 2 votes that voted against it.
You brought that up to me the last time.
Yeah, it was myself and Councilmember Martin, God rest his soul. And, we did feel like the city should have given up that facility, but what are the plans for the facility inside what you all are proposing to do?
Well, the bottom line is we're going to produce a lot of affordable housing. We have been working with a community group over in the old Fourth Ward. Used to call it buttermilk. I've been educated on that, and so not too much I can say right now because it's an active procurement. Because Tishman pulled out, we got to go to the next two finalists. We're doing the best and final proposal. Once we receive that, we're making a recommendation. Comes to me, I make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, then we vote on it. They vote on it, and then we present it to the public. And so I'm not at liberty to say anything, is that we need a lot of affordable housing. We think we're going to get there. Of course, we're not going to satisfy everyone to have, it would be nice to have some density, some commercial, a lot of commercial, and then also do something with that theater, that beautiful theater that a lot of people have graduations and wedding receptions and so forth. So we're going to put that whole package together. And I think it's going to be a great legacy for the city of Atlanta, and especially for Atlanta housing. So as soon as we know something, probably mid-July, you'll be hopefully surprisingly glad that we've moved this forward, and I'm a great product.
Okay, yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to extrapolate from your answer, you're not going to tear it down. That's what I was trying to get.
I'm not tearing down that beautiful theater.
Oh, okay, great.
Absolutely not.
I'm all for building the affordable housing. So.
That's a great theater.
Yeah.
I just see so many different opportunities for that. Now, I'm not from Atlanta, but when I walked in there and saw how beautiful it was, how it's been maintained, I couldn't let that bulldozer knock that stuff down. It's not going to happen.
You're a great man. You're a great man.
Unless I win Powerball and something happens and then we can do something.
If you're a Powerball, you don't need it. So
Thank you, Council Member.
Oh, okay. But the affordable housing question is my next question. I know what you laid out here today is impressive about what the Housing Authority is doing.
That's just a small snapshot. We haven't even talked about RAD. We haven't talked about a bunch of other things that we're doing outside of just building bricks and sticks.
Well, I guess my next question, a lot of these are mixed-use deals or mixed-income deals. Given the dearth of affordable housing in Atlanta, what does it take, or what would it take for you all just to exclusively focus on a development that's all affordable housing, no mixed uses? Is that tied to the way that you all get grants and programmatic funds from HUD, or what goes into those considerations? It's
a combination of just what you described, but what we are going to do, because we have our test, which is Roosevelt Hall, is doing self-development. Self-development, we can probably do some low-income housing, but you have to. It's a financing issue. The HUD won't just allow us just to put public housing on the site and call it a day. They think, or we think, and we agree that mixed income developments are the way to go, but we want to put more affordable versus more market. And so it's a balancing act. We're trying to teeter on to more affordable housing and less market, but the numbers bring us back to trying to do it even. So I couldn't say every development is different. When I first got here, it was a third, low income, a third tax credits, and third market. Each development is different based on the numbers, the criteria, what the local community are wishing for, and what makes sense. And again, as I said it before, we don't want to do cookie cutter stuff. We want to do something innovative, walk past, get people out of their house, something that's more safe, conducive, better neighborhoods, and seamless. We want our community to be seamless. We want it to fit into the community and not be an eyesore and say, oh, you guys know that this is over here and this is mixed income, or this is public housing or low-income housing or Section 8. We don't want to have that anymore. If you look at our mixed-income developments across this city, we have beautiful neighborhoods. Our mixed-income developments rival anything on the private sector, and I testimony to that.
My last question is, given the situation in Atlanta, we have anywhere from 700 to 1,500 folks who are not housed at any given moment. Have you all been in any discussions or with the city or internally about addressing or maybe constructing some transitional housing for that population? I know we were using the hotel up here on Capitol Avenue during the pandemic, and that seemed to work very well. We moved about 800 families from a status of homelessness and got them into some permanent housing. Have you all had any conversations around that?
Yes, and before I answer that question, I want to just make sure that everyone understands we are not responsible for correcting the homeless issue. What we are responsible for is we're responsible for helping our sister agencies like Partners for Home to provide vouchers to get individuals off those streets. And that's what we've done. We've provided between 500 to 700 vouchers to enhance the Partners for Home to get people off the street. And also, in addition to that, we have another program that we're getting the veterans off the street also at the same time. And so we're very robust on providing those housing vouchers to help the city help the homeless off the streets. And we do that by going to various meetings. We think when the strike force starts gearing up, we'll be helping and assisting in that also on the homeless population. So we're well ahead, and we're always ingrained with our supportive services agencies in the city.
Okay. And just one final question about the vouchers. They can be used anywhere. They don't necessarily have to be used inside the city limit, right? They come from HUD.
Yes, they do.
They have to be used in the city? They have to be
used in the city until at such time over a year. If they've been in their place for a year, then they can, they have mobility, you have portable voucher. So if I've lived in the city of Atlanta for a year, I can take that voucher and go to Sacramento, California, and it's portable at that time, and we can do that.
All right. Thank you for answering the question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Presentation. Mr. Chair, I withdraw.
Thank you, Councilmember Bond. Next is Councilmember Winston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. First, I just want to thank your team for the level of engagement that they've been doing with the Inglewood development in the Chosewood community. They've been really engaged with the community and making sure that they've been listening to them about some of the concerns that they've had, and that we've seen really
I appreciate that, Councilman.
We've seen some really positive results from that, so I just want to thank you for that. We got a lot of affordable housing going on in District 1. Working with you all, half of your projects are going to be in District 1, so I'm excited about, a lot of the work that we're going to be doing there. Thomasville Heights, I want to talk specifically about that. So 40% AMI, 800 units on 36 acres, I think are some of the stats that I pulled up.
That's just proposed, council member. It's not etched in stone yet.
Okay.
Because we need to go out there, we need to do our due diligence. We think that's what we can put on there.
Okay.
But also, I don't like to just do the minimum. I like to try to stretch it out and see if we can do more than what we're proposing here.
Okay. And I'm glad to hear that, because I wanted to make sure that same level of community engagement we were doing.
Absolutely.
Chosewood, we were doing the same with, this community that's been longing for development.
Yes.
And something new for a long time. And so I don't know what your standard is. I know just looking at this, that's, it's about 22 units an acre. I've had more family at a birthday party than that on less than an acre. So I'm just trying to see, what, from a density perspective, are we able to push that number up?
What we had to do, we had to put something down on paper so we all have a basis in what we're going to build on. And so based on this, what we're doing right here is proposed, but we want to exponentially increase it because we have a timeline to get this to DCA to see if we can get tax credits for Thomasville. So we think that we're going to be fleshing this out once we hire an architect, developer, and we're going to be fleshing this out to put more units on there. So don't think it's going to be it's final. It's not final yet. We think that we can do more, a lot more than what we have here now. Now, I don't know what that number is, but you'll be seeing more.
And what's the deadline on getting DCA?
We got to submit this by October, so we had to select a developer. We had to do numerous of things to get us there so that we can be the best proposal that DCA will see when we submit this.
I like to move quick, so I'm excited about the timeline. I think it could show, the rest of Atlanta that we can move exponentially in being able to address affordable housing in the city. So,
right.
Let's do everything we can to make the deadline.
That's correct. Thank you, Councilmember.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Winston. Up next is Councilmember Amos.
Thank you. I'd like to start off with just a thank you for the work that you guys have done around Herndon Square. I mean, literally, there has been things that have been on the agenda to be voted on that day, and you guys have pulled it off because there was concerns in the community. I'm also thankful for bringing up the grocery store as well, because I know a lot of people would probably call me saying that you guys have forgot about it already. So thank you for putting that out there. As we move forward and you start to developing on sites that we used to know was 100% affordable, the mixture of houses. Are we thinking out the box? Are we looking at micro housing for our senior citizens? Are we looking at, different type other than just traditional housing, traditional apartments? Also, are we looking at other financing or ways to become on that path of home ownership, delayed closings, rent to own, and things of that nature? I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us as City of Atlanta to really think out of a box, considering we own the land, it's a clear slate, and we can try to work the numbers to be progressive.
I appreciate you bringing those things up, Councilmember, and you're right. We're going to be very innovative. We have a great, robust rent-to-own program. We're going to be putting that out. We have a great FSS program, family self-sufficiency, to get people moved out of assistance and put in a home. We have rental assistance, $25,000. I mean, we have programs that we're going to start putting out there that we've been putting out all across the city. But we're really going to focus on Herndon and our big developments because the synergies are there, because we want to participate in the public arena about what they're looking for and what makes a community now, because we have this opportunity. And we want to get it right the first time, and we don't have a second chance. So we want to be innovative. We want walking paths. We want maybe cityscapes. We want something I don't want something fenced in. I want something that's safe, that people will feel safe, at any time of the night. There's great lighting. If we have to put cameras up just to make sure that everyone's on, feeling safe, we want to make sure it's a destination point. When you park your car, you can get out of your car, you can walk the neighborhoods and feel safe. There's a grocery store, there's amenities, there's a community center that you can enjoy and not get in your car and go somewhere else, but enjoy it right there where you're at. And that's really pretty much what we're trying to do with Bowen Homes and all of our developments. But Bowen Homes, because of its proximity to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, there's all this opportunity. I heard that they're building, a Kroger, Publix. They're doing some things across the street from Mercedes-Benz. So we want to be a part of that energy and doing everything that we can, that we're not the ISO, but we're a part of that community. We fit in that community very well.
Well, thank you. And, also you inherited a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff that Housing Authority don't necessarily own, but has definitely put taxpayer dollars into to stop some of that. How can we get you, hopefully this soon to be passed, tenant bills of rights, to see how we can bake things that are already legally allowable into the processes of Atlanta housing? And you may not have an answer now, understood.
No, I have an answer for
to see how we can bake those things into where it becomes common fashion place, best practices when you're talking about Atlanta housing. And one of the perfect locations to talk about this, and I'll call Dr. Grant on this one because we talked about it previously, I need a plan of action for Magnolia Park.
Sure.
Different owners, several rent companies, everything that they talk about that is bad with housing is taking place in Magnolia Park.
We'll talk about that offline. But and to talk about the tenant advocacy group, I think that's a great suggestion, because I've seen all across this city that residents don't have a voice, or they don't have it's hard to approach an entity or to get to respond to an entity, and I think that's a great opportunity. You got to be open, you got to be honest, and a lot of places, they don't know where to go. Atlanta housing, I think someone brought up Mechanicsville. Yes, we know about Mechanicsville. Yes, I'm going to have to go out there and visit. I'm going to have to go out there and make sure that they respond to the residents, the good and the bad, and see what's going on. What happens in Atlanta housing is that we have an open door, and I go out there and I visit my developments. One of the great things about that, the residents know who we are when we go on the property. They know that they have my cell phone number. They know how to get to us, and that's been a great thing for us, because there's always two sides to the story. My staff will tell me one thing, but I have to go out and I have to go and check, and then more or less the residents are most likely right, and so we look at that. We take it seriously. We make those changes on the spot. It's not something that we procrastinate and said, well, let me look at it for the next 2 to 3 months. No, we don't do that in Atlanta housing anymore. I have a great staff that responds. They're very intimate about what they do. They know what they're doing. They go 24/7, and I commend my staff, and also working with the community groups and with our residents, because the residents come first, and we need them just like they need us, and that we were going to do everything we can We have the resources available. We do wellness checks every quarter. That means wellness checks. We go in there and check each unit. Everyone has to tell us what's going on. If there's heat in the winter and there's AC in the summertime, we go and check. And so we do a 100% check. There's no 95% or 50%. 100% check. We got to go to each one of those units. That's mandated by Gene Jones, Atlanta Housing, to make sure that those residents have the things that they need to do.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Chair. Thanks.
And Councilmember Amos. Councilmember Hillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for the presentation. Of course, in your presentation, my high interest is with Bowen Homes in District 9. So on the dates, just wanted to make sure we do mean 2022. Those ran as 2020 on the slide. And it says the RFPs are due in June. Is that?
I was just going back to when we started this process back in 2020, based on the start that was behind the pandemic. That's when we started looking at Bowen Homes, and that's when we submitted an planning grant that was successfully.
Well, no, this states specifically to the RFP that it was issued in April 2020 and due in June 2020 and select September 2020. But I would take it those are 2022 dates.
Right, but we had to push that back, and then we had another issue that we had to stop that process. So I apologize. Those dates are correct. It was for your review just to see how we started this process early and the things that we had some fallbacks and we had some obstacles, so we had to get through that.
Was there currently an RFP out?
RFP is going out.
Okay, because I was under the impression it already went out.
Let me take that back. There is an RFP that's out. We're waiting to respond. We're waiting for the developers, the proposed developers to come back. I think it's in August. I think we're going to be doing an evaluation. If I look at my notes, let me go back to my notes. So, in fact, the RFP was issued in April. That shouldn't have been April. That should have been, let's see here. No, it should have been. I think I'm going to have to look. I don't want to say something that's wrong, but we should have sent that out already and get a developer so that we can submit an implementation grant to HUD. So I will make sure I update that. But I think that's wrong off the top.
If you could just give me an update on that, I appreciate it. But looking forward to getting some movement on Bowen Homes. Of course, I've committed money from our meager council district budgets to push along the Doing Well Planning Grant as part of the larger grant application to HUD. So keep our fingers crossed in that process, but please just have your team keep me updated.
I need your help on this one.
Sir, you have it.
And I will. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilmember Hillis. Councilmember Bakhtiari.
How you doing, Councilwoman?
Good. How are you?
All right.
Quick question. I was wondering, as we were talking about some of the housing initiatives, numbers, et cetera, factoring this into, I'm wondering if you're measuring this in comparison to our current housing deficit, what was brought up by some of the people testifying earlier about a majority. We know that a lot of our houses are being brought up by corporations, hedge funds, et cetera, that we're limited in what we can do about that because it's a fair market and we're bound a little bit by the state there. But ensuring that we're factoring that in, factoring the current deficit that we're operating on, and if you are perhaps measuring how much affordable housing that you are focusing on across the city in each neighborhood or each district, that's in comparison to the current deficit that we're facing. Something that some of us have been working on is looking at the projected population growth over the next 20 years. I believe the ARC said it was about a little over 900,000. Our former commissioner for planning said it was about 1.5 million. I think we can assume it's somewhere in the middle. And if we are talking about these affordable housing initiatives over the next 20 years in comparison with that population growth and in comparison to what we're building at market rate, do you have any of the numbers that can kind of indicate where we're at?
No, not off the top of my head. But one of the things I want to bring up to your attention about preservation, I'm not sure if you guys remember this or know about this, but HUD has a program called Section 221 D3s and D4s. Those are affordable units at the time that investors had invested in over the last 30 years, and the mortgages have been paid. And so now they have the opportunity to opt out. Now, if they opt out, that means that they can sell it, and if they sell it, it becomes market rate units. Or you can opt out and say, hey, look, I want to keep this affordable. That means either a housing agency like Atlanta Housing go in there and buy it to preserve those units, or we can come together with some other social service agencies or supportive service agencies to buy a co-partnership to preserve these units. We need to look at those also, because there's thousands of those that are being opted out this year, next year, and we need to have an opportunity to do that. Also, there's other programs that we have to think about. We have Section 202s with our elderly that fits in with the churches, 811 programs. They have specific grant monies from HUD that are out right now that could add to the affordability of units in this city. And so there's things that we're trying to bring up and things that we're trying to get to through the clergy and other nonprofits to entertain, trying to go after these grants. We can go co-partnership. We can provide them with expert knowledge and expert assistance to get them to write these grants and get these units, affordable housing units, but it's all over the page. There's a lot of opportunities, and I think the strike force, once the mayor starts gearing up with the strike force, we'll be able to just sit there and look at how we pool all of our resources together and leverage those dollars and try to get more bang for our buck. So I'm very encouraged with that and very happy about that and very positive.
It always takes a diversity of tactics, so there's a lot of things we need to look at. Absolutely. Yes. And I was wondering if there was any chance that you'd be able to give me a map of current AHA housing or AHA land in District 5. As you know, my district is rapidly becoming one of the most affordable districts in the city.
I'll submit one to each one of the council members in there.
That would be very helpful.
On this committee.
Yes, because as you consistently brought up this concept of you alluded to when you were talking about this connectivity, a concept of a 15-minute city. This idea of being able to walk or bike anywhere that you need to go within 15 minutes. Each city needs multiple 15-minute cities within a city. I'd love to see one in each one of my neighborhoods. So speaking to that, I would love to look at the land that's there to see if we can come up with proactive plans on how we can include more of that connectivity and more of that mixed income communities.
And you're right, council member. And also, in addition to that, I want to show you what housing choice vouchers, Section 8, in your district, your neighborhoods also, because I think that's very important also for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bakhtiari. Next is Councilmember Westmoreland.
I'm just waiting for him to ask him, how you doing, Councilmember?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you, too. How's it going? Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Dr. Jones for your presentation. Few questions. I'll use the Inglewood slide and the chart down at the bottom, but it's obviously on several pages. The infrastructure construction at $31 million, and then the IAH pro rata share for infrastructure at just under 25. How are those two numbers calculated? So how do we get to the projected infrastructure cost for each of the projects, and then how is the $25 million figure determined of the 30?
Just an architect has to go in there and saying what the infrastructure is going to look like to build this. And also HUD allows us a pro rata share for the infrastructure, so we get our money from HUD. And so that's what they allocated specifically for infrastructure. We can't go higher than that because they just won't fund it. And so that's the number that we work with. And so the difference between that, now we got to find that money. If we have to go to the city or with this infrastructure bill that's proposed out there, or if Congress comes back with a build better neighborhood, we can go after that kind of allocation. Or if there's any other special, I don't want to say special purpose or earmarks, because Congress doesn't like to hear that word anymore, but anything that comes up that's going to help us get to that number, yes. And those are the things that slow us down when it comes to financing and moving these deals together, because we got to get all those numbers together.
So on this specific project, taking Inglewood, it's $31 million construction infrastructure costs. HUD is giving us 24.8, which means we need to find the other 6.
That's correct.
And is that what the top of the slide is referring to when, with the start of construction this fall, is pending that 6, and is it pending anything else?
No, just that 6.
Okay. And then on the vertical construction side, the total cost projection is 279.
That's correct.
And then how's the HUD determines the 48.7 figure as well?
Based on total development costs. So HUD allows us a total development cost of X, and that's how we calculate that number. And so a total development cost, they tell you how much you can build for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom. And off the top of my head, just strictly on the top of my head, like a 2-bedroom, you can't spend no more than $285,000 per each unit. And so that's how we get the total development cost for each one of the development based on what we're going to be building.
Okay. The next project, the Civic Center, when the media stories came out, I don't know, late April, early May, around the 1,300 residential units, they mentioned that 430 were going to be at 100% of AMI or below, which shakes out to about 33%. But I was surprised by the low number of units and the high percent of AMI that was being used in that entire conversation. And so I think my question is, now that the people have decided not to move forward, as we look at the other 2 finalists, are they locked in? Are we locked into what they presented during the initial RFP process, or is there an opportunity before your board votes in August to have a conversation about what, in my opinion, is a very low number of affordable units and a very high AMI threshold?
I can't speak on that right now, Councilmember, because it's an active procurement. What I can say is that I've made that note. And so once we look at that and I make the recommendations to the board, hopefully whatever happens that everyone's going to be happy with the decision.
Okay. In the Bowen slide that Councilman Hillis referred to earlier, at the bottom it lists the affordability at 80% of AMI or below at 40%. Is that, a couple of times in your presentation you referenced that we have some starting numbers on a document and that they'll be fleshed out over time?
That's correct.
All right, then I will leave that one alone. And then my last 2 questions are on the Thomasville Heights conversation. This map obviously refers to the acres that you control. In the conversations that I know that have been taking place with the city and Invest around all of the other publicly owned land, whether it's City of Atlanta or Atlanta Public Schools, I'm curious to what extent you can share how those conversations have gone in terms of the broader publicly owned conversation, not just specifically your pieces of property.
Well, they started in initial stages, and we have not flushed out anything yet. We're talking with Invest in Atlanta. We're talking about purpose build. We're talking about a number of agencies that make sense until we have to go out to the public and we have to get their responses and their energy about where we should be going. So because this is fast track, it wasn't on the list of things that we had to do, and so we had to put that on there. So we're trying to fast track that because it's the right thing to do. We're trying to maintain that school that they're closing down. We're trying to address Forest Cove, and so we're trying to fast track this and move this forward as quickly as possible. And so we're initially talking about this, and we'll continue talking about this so we can submit a proposal to DCA hopefully by October. Okay, we're very encouraged by this.
And then my final question: what is the current reserve level for Atlanta Housing?
Right now it's going to be about $63 million after we go through a budget process, but that has to be approved by the Board of Commissioners. And the only reason why is that amount because HUD mandates us that we have to have at least 3 to 4 months of operating reserve in case something happens. If they don't do a continuing resolution from Congress and we have to operate, we still have to pay our bills, we have to pay our employees. And so we look at the reserves in order to make sure that we can do that, but also that we can look at properties that we may be able to purchase that's going to maintain affordable housing.
And then as you look back 12, 24, 36 months, where has the reserve level been kind of over the last 1, 2, or 3 or 4 years?
It's been over $100 million. And so one of the things that we had to do when I first got here is that we had to scale that down. Because if you have too much, Congress will get an opportunity that they want to recapture those reserves and give it to they won't give it to other housing authorities, but they'll take it back into the general fund, and then we'll never get it, or no other housing authority will receive those excess reserves. And so we will make sure there's an optimum level, at least have the 3 to 4 months of operating reserve, and then not to have to be a red flag to anyone at HUD headquarters that they have to recapture our reserves.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Westmoreland. I do have just a few more questions. You talked about Scholars Landing earlier. You mentioned the percent units that are affordable. What's that affordability mix? And apologies if you said it earlier and I just missed it, but
they had it at 33, 33, 33.
I meant in terms of the AMI.
AMI, I think it's 80. I think it's 80 and below, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. And then, is there any update on the next phase of McDaniel Glen, that redevelopment?
Which one?
McDaniel Glen in Mechanicsville. Any updates on the next phase? I know they started socializing that AH is looking to start developing on the remaining parcels.
I can get that back to you, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
But I want to make sure I give you some exact times and dates and not just something off the top of my head, because you'll use it against me.
I can't speak for my colleagues, but I wouldn't do such a thing. Just to echo one of the comments brought up earlier during public comment, Ms. Dunn over at Columbia Mechanicsville shared with me some of the challenges they've been having with the elevator. She mentioned that earlier, some trash buildup and collections. I really appreciated you mentioning that you're elevating that in the top of your head in terms of making sure that you personally are going to check out some of these properties.
I don't like to tell anyone when I go out to those properties. I just go out there unannounced because I don't want them to clean it up and say everything's hunky-dory. So I'm going out there. They've made a report. I saw it. I'm not sure have they gotten to the residents, because I think that's the next step, but I want to see. But I'm going to go out and verify it.
Perfect. And just kind of more broadly, one of the really interesting things about being the Community Development Human Services Chair is that, I get a lot of calls from my constituents that live in a lot of these buildings, but I also have gotten calls from folks in other parts of the city. They don't know who to turn to. They've run into issues with their property managers. And I know y'all been doing virtual inspections. And first, I guess the question is, when are y'all going back into in-person inspections?
We already did.
We're already done. Perfect. And then second, just as a council person, trying to convey to constituents, I recognize that not every person dealing with an issue with their property manager falls under the purview of Atlanta Housing. I know that y'all have folks that are using certain vouchers. Y'all have folks that y'all own the property.
We don't own everything in the city.
Exactly. And so we'll love to maybe have a kind of follow-up conversation about how we can, I think to Councilmember Bakhtiari's question about identifying those properties, giving us kind of a cheat sheet on how to reference who to go to, what's the best course of action when we get these concerns. But when we do have properties that are owned by AH or have a separate property manager, when you do go through the inspection process, what is the accountability mechanism if you do identify a property manager that isn't up to snuff, hasn't been doing what they're supposed to do, making sure that they aren't continuing to operate in the subpar conditions in other properties across the city? And just thinking back to the Columbia example in Mechanicsville, I know Columbia purchased another property in the neighborhood. I don't think that has Atlanta Housing's purview, but if there were already complaints in the system and folks had issues, I'm curious what mechanisms exist to ensure that those property managers, clean up their mess, but also aren't continuing their mess elsewhere. I know AAC just did their story a couple days ago.
If the ACV Housing Choice Voucher or Section 8, then we abate the landlord's rent until they correct what they have deficient. Those are housing quality standards. On the ones that we do multifamily or RAD developments, and the residents let us know, and we get to the property managers, and we send them a letter and say you have so many days of corrective action. They submit that to us. We go back to the residents' population. We talk to them, and I go out there. I go out to the developments. I talk to the residents. We hash it out. There's various other issues that a lot of residents don't understand, don't know, and they don't know what their rights are. So we have to make sure that we go in there and tell them what their rights are. So every RAD development, every multifamily development, although we don't own the property, we still have to go out there. We have to represent the residents because we that's just what we do. Don't have to do it, but we're going to do it, and that's what we can't stop. And so residents have access to our numbers. They have a website, but I go out there and I visit our developments ever so often, more so than anyone else does. And because of COVID has died down a little bit, I'm going back out there to see what's going on with our developments and get input from our residents and continue this dialogue. But I rest assure you, I think you brought up a great suggestion. Each one of your districts will have what we have in Housing Choice Voucher, what we have RAD, everything that we have that's associated to Atlanta housing that you have, and you have numbers of contact in case there's some issues that they can't get in touch with the property manager. The ultimate is call us and we'll get in touch with them. We do respond.
Okay.
I look at all my emails, I answer all my calls, and they get back to them with less than 24 hours. They're surprised that we respond to our emails, especially me.
And did I hear correctly, you said that those inspection results are on the website?
No, we don't do the inspection results on our website because it's confidential.
Okay.
But we will, if you inquire about some of that, we can talk to you about what we went out there to do. We inspected the units here. We abated those units. They got 30 days to go out there. We can tell you when we went back out there. If they still haven't corrected it, if there's a point that it's a safety or a matter of urgency, we'll sit there and say, landlord, you're not going to fix it. We're going to move that resident out. We're going to find them another unit in the city that's comparable with what they have.
Okay. And the reason why I ask is, I think about where we have information asymmetry challenges in the city. If I'm a prospective tenant and I am looking for housing and I'm about to fill out the application form, get charged an arm and a leg to even submit that application form, but the property that I'm applying to has been under active investigation, has been fined, this, that, and the other, and I don't know that information offhand.
We can give that to them.
Okay, so they are armed with that information.
If they're potentially looking at a property, we'll tell them, no, don't go to this property. But the interesting thing, I'm glad you brought that out, council member, is that I wish there was a way in which the landlords cannot take a Section 8 or housing service voucher participant.
Say that again?
Landlord does not have to take a housing choice voucher or a Section 8 participant in their unit.
Right.
That's been a problem throughout this city because they can't find quality housing because landlords have the option or they don't have to rent. Something needs to happen there because there are a lot of Section 8 voucher holders that cannot find an adequate place, and then they go to a place where you wouldn't want to rent from, but they have no other choice. And we just can't tell them, no, we want to approve it. And so some of them have to give back their vouchers. I think that's a sad opportunity when you have to give your voucher back because you can't find adequate housing.
Understood. And like I said, this is kind of why I asked that line of question. The article that ASU released a couple of days ago, I've been wrestling with that a lot because I know that a lot of those, even though these are private developments or private, properties, private owners, I'm sure a lot of their residents are using vouchers to stay there. So how do we ensure they have a quality
of life? Once we know something is going on, they know how to contact us. We're out there. And our offices are open now, so they do come into our office and we talk, and we go out there immediately when there's issues like that.
Well, that's my last question. I appreciate you, and thanks for taking some time with us this afternoon.
Thank you, council members. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, I believe we have ordinances for first reading.
All right. Item number 3, 22-01489, CDP 22-011, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 90 and 98 Whiteford Avenue Northeast from the low-density residential 0-8 units per acre land use designation to the medium-density residential land use designation and for other purposes.
Next item.
Otherwise, item number 4, 22-01490, an ordinance by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor to accept and sign a supplemental grant agreement with the United States Environmental Protection Agency in the amount of $3,900,000.00 for the Brownfields Revolving Loan Fund Program, amending the 2022 Intergovernmental Grant Fund budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations in the amount of $3,900,000.00 and for other purposes.
All right. Next on our agenda, ordinances for second reading. Please proceed.
Mr. Chair, there are several of these that we can take as a block. These would include items number 5, 6, 10, 11, 12, and 13. These are all CDP papers that were heard at the June 8th CDP hearing, but have companion papers going through the zoning process.
Any objection from my colleagues for taking it as a block? Seeing none, please proceed.
Number 5, 22-0-1147, CDP 22001, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 4336 Cascade Road Southwest from the single-family residential land use designation to the medium-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 6, 22-0-1433, CDP 22004, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 790, 804, 830, 840, 860, and 880 Woodrow Street Southwest and 806, 810, and 820 Warner Street Southwest from the industrial land use designation to the mixed-use medium density land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 10, 22-0-1437, CDP 22017, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 2011 and 2015 Memorial Drive Southeast from the single-family residential land use designation to the medium-density residential land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 11, 22-0-1438, CDP 22018, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 1058, 1078, 1094, 1108, and 1120 Moreland Avenue Southeast from this mixed-use low-density land use designation to the mixed-use medium-density land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 12, 22-0-1439, CDP 22019, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 220 Pearl Street Southeast from the industrial land use designation to the mixed-use land use designation and for other purposes. And item number 13, 22-0-1440, CDP 22020, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 10 Blackland Road Northwest from the low-density commercial land use designation to the office institutional land use designation and for other purposes.
Thank you. Colleagues, as was stated before, each of these items has a companion paper that is currently being processed through zoning. And so since that hasn't completed that process yet, I'm going to move to hold those items. Second by Westmoreland. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
Motion to hold is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Next item.
Going back to item number 7. That is 22-0-1434, CDP 22008, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 2333 Metropolitan Parkway Southwest, 622 to 638 Avery Road Southwest, 648 and 658 Avery Road Southwest, from the low-density commercial land use designation to the mixed-use medium-density land use designation, and 2360 Perkerson Road Southwest from the single-family residential and low-density commercial land use designation to the mixed-use medium-density land use designation and for other purposes.
Thank you. And we have Jessica Lavendier, the Assistant Director of Office of Zoning, here to speak to this particular item.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. This group of parcels, they total about 5.7 acres, and they're at the corner of Metropolitan and Avery. They're mainly vacant. It's mainly a vacant piece of property, and it's in the Perkerson neighborhood of MPUX in Council District 12. We work with the Perkerson neighborhood in the development of the Council District 12 neighborhood blueprint plan about a year or so ago, and through the community engagement, we came up with this concept of the Metropolitan Mile, where the goal is to redevelop parcels, particularly vacant and underutilized parcels along Metropolitan, to accommodate growth and development and to create more of a walkable mixed-use development, to promote that kind of development. So this proposed development will consist in about 280 multifamily units with 50 senior housing, and they're considering non-residential uses fronting on Metropolitan. So the proposed development is consistent with the recommendations of the plan. The plan specifically recommended the MRC2 zoning that the applicant is seeking. So staff recommends approval of this land use amendment, and this was before MPUX at their March meeting, and they also recommended approval. It's consistent with our comprehensive development plan that is the character areas redevelopment, and it's promoting redevelopment of vacant lands to accommodate growth in the city.
All right. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I'll make the motion to approve. Can I get a second? Whoa. Second by Winston. Any additional comments or discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, the motion is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Next item.
Item number 8, 22-01435, CDP 22010, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 717 Pryor Street Southwest from the single-family residential land use designation to the medium-density residential land use designation and for other purposes.
Yes, thank you. This is a 0.71 acre parcel at the corner of Pryor and Bass, and it's currently vacant. And the proposal is to build 12 townhomes. This was in the Mechanicsville redevelopment plan, and the plan calls for infill development and more diversity of housing in the neighborhood. And it specifically for this parcel recommends townhome development. This was also before MPUV, and they voted to support this land use amendment, and it's consistent with the plan for the area. So staff recommends approval of the land use amendment.
I'll go ahead and move approval. Can I get a second? Second by Bakhtiari. I heard you whisper. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
All right, motion is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Please move to the next item.
Item number 9, 22-01436, CDP 22012, an ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee to amend the land use element of the 2021 Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to redesignate property located at 1285 Sylvan Road Southwest from the industrial land use designation to the mixed-use medium-density land use designation and for other purposes.
Lavendier.
Yes, this is a 4.1 acre parcel in the Capitol View neighborhood of MPUX in Council District 12, and that's currently occupied by a salvage yard. This parcel is included in 2 plans in the Council District 12 neighborhood blueprint for Adair Park, Capitol View, and Capitol View Manor, and also in the Beltline Subarea 2 plan. Both plans called for more employment in the Murphy Crossing area where this parcel is located. The residents wanted to see employment that meets their skill level, that meets their needs, and also to have they realize that this area, industrial, is transitioning, but want to see more employment. This plan consists of solely townhomes. There's no employment. So staff recommends that this is not consistent with both plans that have been adopted for the area. So staff recommends denial of this land use amendment. This was before NPUX, and they voted to support this land use amendment.
So the NPU voted to support, staff voted to deny.
That's right. In both plans, we heard that people wanted employment and wanted employment that meets their skill level. So with this plan being solely, there's a lot of housing already in the area, and there's a need for more employment.
And then you said this is in the Murphy Crossing.
That's right.
Is this a Beltline owned property?
It's not owned by the Beltline. Okay. It's a privately owned property on Cox and Sylvan Road, just north of Sylvan and Dill.
Okay. Any other questions from my colleagues? I'll go ahead and, since the NPU did vote to support, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve. Second by Bakhtiari. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
Motion is favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 abstention. Just point of clarification for committee, abstentions don't need to be stated, correct? All right, thank you. Next item.
Item number 14, 22-01450. An ordinance by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland authorizing the City of Atlanta to donate American Rescue Plan Act funds to the Urban League of Greater Atlanta pursuant to Section 6-306 of the City of Atlanta's Charter in an amount not to exceed $1 million and 0 cents in order to administer grants to youth serving nonprofit organizations to increase capacity to serve students disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and for other purposes.
All right. So this paper was actually, there was a request to hold. So I'll go ahead and make that motion. Second by Westmoreland. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
The motion to hold is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Mr. Chair, the committee has a substitute in their packet. Would you like to bring that forward?
I would. Can I get a second? Second by Westmoreland. Please open the vote to bring the substitute forward.
The vote is open.
Councilmember Bond.
Needs to read the caption before we take any action on the paper, even if it's to bring the substitute.
All right, point taken. If you could read the caption, and then we'll take a motion to bring the subject forward.
Item number 22-01455, an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier authorizing the amendment of the 2021 annual action and an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier to accept an additional award of American Rescue Plan funds made available to the city through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Home ARP grant to assist individuals or households who are homeless, at risk of homelessness, and other vulnerable populations by providing housing, rental assistance, supportive services, and non-congregate shelter to reduce homelessness and increase housing stability, and to amend the Home Investment Partnerships Program Fund budget by anticipating and appropriating $999,553.00 and authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to substantially amend the city's 2020-2024 consolidated plan to fund various projects and enter into agreements with project sponsors to provide tenant-based rental assistance and supportive services using home ARP funds and for other purposes.
All right, and so I recognize that the substitute is just reflecting that there's an adjustment to the 2021 annual action plan, and so we can go ahead and bring that forward. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Bakhtiari. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
And the motion to bring the substitute forward is adopted, 7 yeas and 0 nays. Please read the caption.
It is an ordinance by Councilmember Jason Dozier as substituted by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the amendment of the 2021 Annual Action Plan to accept an additional award of American Rescue Plan funds made available to the city through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Home ARP grant to assist individuals or households who are homeless, at risk of homelessness, and other vulnerable populations by providing housing, rental assistance, supportive services, and non-congregate shelter to reduce homelessness and increase housing stability, and to amend the Home Investment Partnerships Program Fund budget by anticipating and appropriating $7,991,553.00 and authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to substantially amend the city's 2020 through 2024 consolidated plan to fund various projects and enter into agreements with project sponsors to provide tenant-based rental assistance, supportive services, acquisitions, and rehabilitation using home ARP funds and for other purposes.
Thank you. Commissioner Lyon, good to see you.
Good afternoon. This particular ordinance, council members, is asking for 3 different things. One is to award the additional funds from HUD. It's an additional $7.9 million specific to the home program for home ARP funds. So we wish to accept the funds. Secondly, we would have to amend the consolidated plan. And then thirdly, we're asking to contract, once all of that is approved, with service providers, and we would have to hold this for both public input and a public hearing until July 5th.
Understood. And recognizing that the recommendation from the administration is to hold, I'll make that motion. Second by Winston. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
All right, the motion to hold is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Item number 16, 22-0-1459, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to amend the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, Chapter 94, Human Relations, which prohibits discrimination throughout the city to update terms consistent with federal laws and regulations and current references and for other purposes.
Councilmember Bakhtiari, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, it's just simple edits to the language to make this more gender inclusive, which I think is something that we should consider, given that this is about prohibiting discrimination throughout the city. Then we should make sure that it reflects all people within the city. So it's just edits to the language. So I move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Bakhtiari, second by Bond. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
And the motion is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Item number 17, 22-0-1461, an ordinance by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet to update the requirements for agreements between Park Pride and Community Garden adopter groups, originally authorized by Resolution 07-R-1363, and for other purposes.
Thank you. Commissioner Dargle, I believe you're going to be speaking to this legislation. Good to see you, by the way.
Thank you, Chair Dozier and council members. This resolution, or excuse me, this ordinance updates the requirements of the agreements between Park Pride and the community garden adopters, and we have no issues with this legislation. Park Pride currently is under a service agreement with us, and they support the operation and management of our adoptive community garden program. Right now we have 23 community gardens in the system, and so additional requirements are any new applicants, initial applicants will go through the MPU process, and then there will be a project description or process description that's on the Park Pride website to provide documentation of how the community members can engage with and get involved in the garden.
All right, any comments or questions?
Move for approval.
Moved by Winston, seconded by Amos. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
And the motion is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Before we move to the next item, I believe the previous item that we just approved, that is 22-0-1459, which is an ordinance by Councilmember Lilian Bakhtiari to amend the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, Chapter 94, needs to be reconsidered, is my understanding. So I'll actually like to make the motion to reconsider that legislation. Second by Bond. Please open the vote.
The vote is open.
The motion
is closed.
Sorry, the motion to reconsider carries, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
We have a substitute, so I wanted to motion to bring forth that substitute.
We have a substitute. So I'll second that motion to bring forth a substitute for that. Motion by Bakhtiari.
One moment. And the vote is open. The vote is closed.
And the motion to bring forth the substitute carries, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
I'll read that substitute if you like.
Please.
The caption, excuse me, not that. An ordinance by Councilmember Lilian Bakhtiari is substituted by the Community Development and Human Services Committee. An ordinance to amend the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, Chapter 94, Human Relations, which prohibits discrimination throughout the city, to update the terms consistent with federal laws and regulations and current references, and for other purposes.
Thank you. And what the substitute, just for my clarification?
I've distributed this through email to all the council members, but perhaps the sponsor wants to go into
Legal,
the
can you
detail.
speak to that?
Yes, good afternoon, Amber A. Robinson's Law Department. The substitute simply provides some cleanup for some, there was an inadvertent deletion included in the original legislation that didn't comport with the intent of the legislation. And also there was a need to create additional sections of the legislation to ensure that upon codification that this particular legislation wouldn't inadvertently delete existing sections. And then lastly, there was a replacement of a term in the last operable section of the substitute, which was not a defined term in the Human Relations Code, with the terms that are in fact defined.
Thank you. On that, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve as substituted and seconded by Bakhtiari.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
And the motion is favorable on substitute, 7 yeas, 0 nays. All right, next item.
The next item is item number 18, 2201471. It is an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone authorizing the Chief Financial Officer or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to transfer the total expenditure amount from the Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS Fund source to the Department of Grants and Community Development General Fund account in an amount not to exceed $17,127.00 to satisfy disallowed costs from the expired contract, specifically Atlanta Legal Aid, within the Grants and Community Development Department and for other purposes. There is a substitute in every committee member's packet that needs to be.
I'll move to bring forth the substitute. Can I get a second? Second by Bakhtiari. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. And the vote is closed.
Motion to bring forth the substitute carries, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Please read the caption.
An ordinance by Andrea L. Boone as substituted by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to transfer the total expenditure amount from the Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS Fund source to the Department of Grants and Community Development General Fund account in an amount not to exceed $17,127.00 to satisfy disallowed costs from expired contracts, specifically Atlanta Legal Aid, within the Grants and Community Development Department and for other purposes.
Commissioner Lonan.
Yes, sir. As you all are aware, the department has been cleaning house with HOPWA. With this particular reimbursement, Atlanta Legal Aid contracted to perform services. They performed those services. They submitted their reimbursements. But because of some internal procedures and obstacles, both the contract and the funds expired, but we need to pay them. And so the ask here is that we're permitted to pay them with general funds.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions, comments? I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve.
Thank you.
On substitute, second by Bakhtiari.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
The motion to approve on substitute is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Item number 19, 2201472, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone to authorize the mayor or his designee to enter into a community development block grant subrecipient agreement with Westview Realty Partners on behalf of the Department of City Planning for reimbursement of costs related to exterior improvements for Westview Corner Grocery located at 1562 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard under the Storefront Improvement Program, retroactively effective February 11, 2022 through June 30, 2022, in an amount not to exceed $39,591.00 in accordance with Sections 2-1641 and 2-1163, subsection C of Article 10, Procurement Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances and for other purposes.
All right. I believe we have Ben Camber, the Assistant Director of Office of Housing and Community Development, to speak to this.
Hi, good afternoon, council members. So the legislation before you today is routine legislation that authorizes the city to reimburse Westview Corner Grocery for a portion of their approved storefront improvement project. So the storefront improvement grant is funded through the city's allocation of federal community development block grant funds. If you're not familiar with Westview Corner Grocery, they're located on Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard in the heart of Westview. They're a community-focused grocery store that provides fresh, natural food access to the neighborhood and serves as a community hub. They're also, as a fun fact, they're at the site of one of the first Krogers in the city, so it's been a grocery store dating back to 1949. So thanks to the city's storefront improvement grant, they're able to completely restore their building's facade and add back sidewalk-facing doors and glass windows. This will help enliven the storefront and block and make access much more pedestrian-friendly, and it'll allow Westview Corner Grocery to have an even stronger presence in the community. The project is almost across the finish line, and the legislation at hand will help get Westview Corner Grocery reimbursed. Thank you.
Any questions, comments from colleagues? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and move approval. second by Bond. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
Motion is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Next item. I believe we're on the resolutions.
Item number 20 is 22R3705, an ordinance by Councilmember Keisha Shawn Waits authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the city of Atlanta to enter into agreement with Jerusalem House effective immediately in an amount not to exceed $4,083,806.10 for the purpose of approving tenant-based rental assistance, supportive services, and eligible administrative purposes as an award recipient of the Home American Rescue Program sponsored by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and for other purposes. There's a substitute in every member's packet.
All right. I'll motion to bring forth the substitute. Can I get a second? Second by Bakhtiari. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
And the motion to bring forth the substitute carries, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Please read the caption of the substitute.
Caption reads, a resolution by Councilmember Keisha Shawn Waits is substituted by Community Development and Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the city of Atlanta as an award recipient of the Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS Capital Project Program sponsored by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to enter into an agreement with Jerusalem House LLC in an amount not to exceed $7,043,042.00 for the purpose of providing acquisition, rehab, and supportive services and for other purposes.
All right. Commissioner Lonan.
Yes, sir. This is Hopper Capital Funds from our fiscal year 2019 and 21, actually. And what we are asking permission here is to grant Jerusalem House some funds for acquisition specific to affordable housing.
Any questions or comments from colleagues? Motion to approve as substituted by Bakhtiari. I'll second. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
The motion to approve substitute is favorable. Lots of syllables today. Next item.
Item number 21, 22R3708, a resolution by council members Byron D. Amos and Jason Dozier to support the development of a tenants' bill of rights and to encourage the Georgia General Assembly to repeal any state-level prohibition on the ability of the City of Atlanta to develop and implement a tenants' bill of rights for the purpose of promoting housing equity and affordability to those residing within the City of Atlanta and for other purposes.
Thank you. Councilman Amos, would you like to speak to this?
Motion to approve.
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
Motion is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Item number 22, 22R3709, a resolution by council members Matt Westmoreland and Amir Faroqi expressing the support of the Atlanta City Council for the Center for Global Health Innovation and for other purposes.
We have a motion to hold by Councilmember Westmoreland, second by Councilmember Hillis. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
And the motion to hold is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Item number 23, 22R3713, a resolution by Marcy Collier Overstreet to authorize the formation of a project management team to complete the design and construction of the Cascade Springs Nature Preserve Improvements Project, to urge the project management team to move expeditiously so no awarded funding is lost, thereby jeopardizing completion of the full scope of work and for other purposes.
All right. Commissioner Dargo, I believe you're here to speak to this legislation as well.
Thank you, Chairman. And this resolution authorizes, as it's stated, a project management team to complete the design and construction of the Cascade Nature Preserve project. There's been a lot of hands in the pot, so a lot of other city departments involved, so this streamlines that process, and we'll get the project completed as planned.
All right, any questions or comments from colleagues? Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. I support the legislation, but my question is there any type of evaluation being done with some of our other parks? Because, you know, they all may not be, I guess, wired the same way if we're trying to seek ultimately to have the city have the cameras for observation for the video integration system. So are you all looking at some of the other parks while you're dealing with this issue?
In terms of the safety and security measures?
Well, just yes, but specifically about making sure that they're wired so that they can accommodate the equipment.
We have done an assessment of the top 20 parks as mentioned before, and are continuing to work with APD on ensuring that those security cameras are connected to their system as we go. So we've gone through and replaced or maintained over 250 cameras to date, and we'll continue to do that now with the infrastructure bond that's passed. Another $4 million will go into that assessment.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Amos.
This actually piggybacks off of what Councilmember Bond was saying. I do remember in one meeting, I don't know if it was public safety or this meeting, that Councilman Overstreet, we found out that there was only 2 places that cameras could go in the nature preserve, one in the parking lot and then one in the very back. So speaking of wiring, what are we doing to add more electricity for the possibility of adding more cameras?
I do not know that answer now, but I can get back to you on that one. I know that we've used solar cameras, wireless cameras as well in there for temporary placement, but additional electricity, I'll get back to you on that one and let you know what we're going to do over there at Cascade Springs.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and move approval. Can I get a second? Second by Amos. Please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Thank you.
And the vote is closed.
Motion is favorable, 6 yeas, 0 nays.
It will have the vote reflect 7 yeas.
Oh, sorry, I missed that one. 7 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Item number 24, 22R3714, a resolution by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet authorizing the mayor on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the National Community Reinvestment Coalition Housing Rehab Fund, LLC, and Riddle Property Group, LLC, to formalize a partnership that will emphasize the City of Atlanta's support for housing programs, providing home ownership opportunities and affordable living options to low to moderate income families or in low to moderate income communities and for other purposes.
I talked to Councilmember Overstreet before today's committee meeting to get some additional information about this one, and she had shared with me that this resolution just formalizes conversations that have been happening for some time about this particular issue, and so she strongly, obviously, encouraged support, but I did talk to her about it, and I'm in support as well, so I'll go ahead and move approval. Second by Bakhtiari. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
Motion is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Item number 25, 22R3716, a resolution by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to enter into an agreement with Affordable Housing Solutions, DBA Edgewood, beginning October 1, 2022 and ending September 30, 2023, in an amount not to exceed $226,768.00 and for the purpose of providing rehabilitation services and eligible administrative purposes as an award recipient of the Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS Capital Project program, sponsored by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and for other purposes. There's a substitute in every committee member's packet.
All right. I'll make the motion to bring forth the substitute. Can I get a second? Second by Bakhtiari. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. The vote is closed.
Motion to bring forth the substitute carries, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Please read the caption.
A resolution by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone, as substituted by Community Development and Human Services Committee, authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to award as an award recipient of the Housing Opportunity for Persons with AIDS Capital Project program, sponsored by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, to enter into agreement with Affordable Housing Solutions, Inc., Edgewood, as an amount not to exceed $226,768.00 for the purpose of providing rehab and for other purposes.
All right, Commissioner Lonan.
Forgive me, I'm contemplating if that's correct. But nevertheless, it is the same funding that I was just before you on for Hopwood Capital Project funding, so that we can provide additional affordable housing. My only hesitation is that beginning October 1, 2022. And I'm not certain if I should pull or if I will have another opportunity to amend. Could someone educate me? I apologize.
Let me see if I read the most recent version of this.
I doubt that that's your mistake. It's probably ours.
If we were to hold, would that delay things?
It would for the developer.
We have a motion on the table to move forward on condition and that we verify the date before the next full council meeting. And that was seconded by Bond.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that educational opportunity.
Open the vote, and then we'll push forward.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
All right, the motion to approve on condition is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, I believe that was the last resolution. Next, we have dual referred items.
That's right. This is item number 2622R3711, a resolution by Council Members Liliana Bakhtiari, Amir Faroki, Michael Julian Bond, Matt Westmoreland, Mary Norwood, Byron D. Amos, Jason Dozier, Dustin Hillis, Jason H. Winston, Alex Wan, and Keisha Shawn Waits, requesting that no city funds be utilized to record and or investigate reports of abortion care, and request that the Atlanta Police Department place reports of abortion-related care at the lowest possible priority and for other purposes.
Right. Colleagues, I believe this was favorable out of PSLA, but Councilmember Bakhtiari, since you're the sponsor, do you want to speak to this?
It's quite simple. We need to do all that we can to protect people's right to choose, and I move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Bakhtiari, second by Hillis. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. And the vote is closed.
Motion is favorable, 7 yeas, 0 nays. Next, we have papers held in committee. I believe we have 6 papers remaining that have been held in committee that will be discussed today. Please move forward.
Item number 30 is 22-01153, CDP 22-007, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to amend the land use element of the 2021 City of Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to designate property at 2001 Glenwood Avenue Southeast, 2007 Glenwood Avenue Southeast, and 2013 Glenwood Avenue Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia 30316 to the single-family land use designation and for other purposes.
Thank you. Ms. Lavender.
Thank you. There are 4 annexations, so I don't know if you want to have all of them together, but they're both, all of them are parcels where the property owners made a petition to annex into the city. And as part of that, we have to designate the parcels with the land use designation that's closest to what it is in DeKalb County. They are all single-family homes, so the recommendation is for them to have a single-family land use designation when they're annexed into the city. This was before they're an NPU O and W, and they recommended approval, and staff also recommends approval of the designation.
You said it's similar for all of the items?
All 4, yes. They're all 4 annexation papers are single-family homes coming into the city.
All right. And so with that being said, if my colleagues will indulge me, we can take those as a block then, most likely.
There is a number 31, number 32, and number 34.
Can we move to approve as a block?
Thank you.
Continue on with item number 31, 22-01156, CDP 22005, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to amend the land use element of the 2021 City of Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to designate property at 2014 Swayze Drive, Decatur, Georgia 30032 to the single-family residential land use designation and for other purposes. Item number 32, 22-01159, CDP 22006, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to amend the land use element of the 2021 City of Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to designate property at 2071 Kavanaugh Avenue Southeast, 2080 Kavanaugh Avenue Southeast, 2083 Kavanaugh Southeast, and 2084 Kavanaugh Avenue Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia 30316, to the single-family residential land use designation and for other purposes. And item number 34, 22-01200, CDP 22014, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to amend the land use element of the 2021 City of Atlanta Comprehensive Development Plan so as to designate property located at 1363 Black Oak Drive, Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia 30316 to single-family residential land use designation and for other purposes.
All right. Any questions or comments from colleagues? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and move approval. Second by Winston. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
Motion is favorable, 5 ayes, 0 nays. Next item.
The next item is item number 40, 22R3411, a resolution by Councilmember Byron D. Amos authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Atlanta Workforce Development Agency, aka WorkSource Atlanta, to enter into a contractual agreement for the contract number listed with Arbor E&T LLC, DBA Equus Workforce Solutions for a term of 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew in the amount not to exceed $750,000 for purposes of providing workforce service delivery for Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act youth programs and services. All contracted work shall be charged to and paid from the account listed herein and for other purposes. There is an amendment in your packet to attach an IPRO report, which is also in your packet.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to amend to attach the IPRO report. Second by Hillis. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
The motion to amend carries 5 yeas, 0 nays. We have Amy Lancaster King with WorkSource Atlanta who can speak to this before we take a final vote.
Thank you, Chairman Dozier and council and fellow members of the council. This is for a contract with Equus, which is our current provider for youth services. So this will cover up to, or at least, 75 youth. We have 2 categories of youth that will be served by this: in school, which are 14 to 21 and are connected to some formal education or training program, and out of school youth, which are 16 to 24.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from colleagues? Seeing none, I'll motion to approve as amended. Second by Winston. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Motion to approve as amended is favorable. 5 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Item number 41, 22R3412, a resolution by Councilmember Byron D. Amos authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Atlanta Workforce Development Agency, aka WorkSource Atlanta, to enter into a contractual agreement for the contract number listed with Arbor ENT LLC, Equus Workforce Solutions, for a term of 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew in an amount not to exceed $1,450,000.00 for purposes of providing workforce service delivery for Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act adult dislocated worker programs. All contracted work shall be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein, and for other purposes. There's an amendment in your packet to attach the iPro, which is also in your packet.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to amend. Can I get a second? Second by Hillis. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
Motion to amend carries 6 yeas, 0 nays. Ms. Lancaster King.
This one is for our adults and dislocated workers. This will serve a minimum of 250 adults and dislocated workers and include training, work experience, and supportive services. This is our current provider, and so this is creates continuity in service. Our current contract expires June 30th. So.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll move to approve as amended. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Winston. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
The motion to approve as amended is favorable. 6 yeas, 0 nays. Next item.
Item number 44, 22R3634, an amended resolution by the Community Development and Human Services Committee to transmit the 2023 through 2027 capital improvements element, which includes capital improvements that the city intends to fund in whole or in part with department impact fees to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs and the Atlanta Regional Commission in compliance with the requirements of the Georgia Development Impact Fee Act and for other purposes.
All right. This was already amended?
We've amended it, but in previous meetings, this was heard at the CDP hearing on Wednesday last week.
Perfect. We have Ms. Tiffany Cope, Impact Fee Coordinator with the Department of City Planning, to speak to this particular.
Good afternoon, everyone. Essentially, the paper before you is to transmit the 2023-2027 capital improvements element to the Atlanta Regional Commission and the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. As a condition of assessing impact fees, the city must update and adopt the CIE each year. However, prior to adoption, the CIE must be reviewed and approved both by ARC and DCA. So again, we're before you today seeking approval to send the CIE to those agencies for their review so that we may move forward towards adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from colleagues? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve as amended. Second by Amos.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
Motion to approve as amended is favorable. 6 yeas, 0 nays. I believe that was our final legislative item. We have no walk-in legislation, no requested items. Any general remarks from colleagues? Councilmember Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to announce that this week's Hello Fresh will be held at the First Mount Pleasant Baptist Church at 816 Maynard Terrace at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, June 15th. Atlanta is the number 2 city in the country for inflation. Groceries have increased by 8% in the inflation rate, and the lines get longer every day. So if you don't, there's no prerequisite to receive this benefit from HelloFresh and Second Helpings Atlanta. And if you don't need it, please, chances are you know somebody who does. So please pass the word along. We'll be there at 3 p.m. until supplies run out. We do distribute through other means other than our drive-up, walk-up with groups like Jose Helps and Antioch Urban Ministries and others. We end up distributing about 8,000 meals a week. But the walk-up, drive-up will be there until we run out of supplies. So hopefully we'll see you there. If not, please pass the word along. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bond. Any other final remarks or announcements? Seeing none, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
you.